All right, let's go over the supported side split hold. So the main objective of this exercise, if not for anything else, is to learn to be able to spend adequate amounts of time under tension in the position, and more specifically in the end ranges of the position. All right, so beyond that, another objective that we're really looking to get out of this exercise is to be able to learn how to create effective contractions, which is going to allow us to build more strength in those end ranges, as well as lay down new tissues in the end ranges to make them more accessible over time, as well as expand where that range of motion actually ends. And that's how we open up deeper and deeper into the position. So using support systems is going to be a great way for us to really facilitate these objectives and get the most out of the side split position, especially more towards the beginner level when it's very hard to support your entire body weight in the position. So let me go over some different support strategies and what I would recommend for you to use depending on the level you're at and how deep of a range you're able to get in. So without further ado, let's get into some of those demos. So the idea behind using support systems in the position is to be able to take a percentage of the load of your body weight off of the tissues being stretched so that you can make that range of motion more tolerable for the tissues that exist within the end range, because for most people, especially at that beginner level, those end range tissues are not going to be able to support the full load of your body weight. So this is where the supports come in handy. So at that beginner or entry level where we're not getting overly deep into the position, that's totally okay, but we just need to make sure that we're using a support that is an appropriate height for you so that you can kind of use it to support yourself without compromising on any of the attributes of the position. So let me show you what we're gonna look to do. Our easiest way to support ourselves is going to be to use a body support. So we want something like a bench or a chair like I've got here, or even a table or something, so that when we get into that position, we can simply lay down our body. We can put our elbows on that support or however you want to support yourself, but we can lean our body onto that support, which is going to take a big chunk of the weight from our body and apply it to our upper body. So wherever you're supporting yourself, it'll be applied to the elbows or the hands or whatever. And the main attributes that we want to look to follow here is to keep the feet in line with our hips and do our best to anteriorly tilt the pelvis. So that's going to be rotating the pelvis forwards and creating an arch in the low back. All right, this is going to create more space in the hip capsule for the head of the femur to abduct and move into that side split position. So our next progression in terms of support systems, which is going to carry us into a more intermediate level of the side split, is going to be hand supports. So rather than leaning our entire body onto an object and taking the entire load of our upper body off of the tissues being stretched, now what we're going to do is use some elevated supports. Here I've got yoga blocks. You can use kettlebell handles or parallel bars or whatever is going to be the right height for you to work with. But what we're doing is being able to push our hands into that support so that our hands are absorbing a certain percentage of the load of our body weight, but it allows us to push our torso into a more upright position, which is going to allow us to load the tissues being stretched a lot more, because more of our body weight is going to be on that stretch. All right, so let me get into a little demonstration here. Like I said, using yoga blocks. So we just want to be able to push our hands down into that support and absorb some of the load of our body weight with our hands, and then like I said, we also want to make sure that we're maintaining that anterior pelvic tilt, so an arch in the low back, so that we can create more space in the pelvis for the legs to abduct. And we're just pushing down on those blocks, and then over time we can lower that hand support as we get deeper and deeper into the position. And last but not least, we have our leg supports. So for this, ideally you're going to need some yoga blocks, as they just work the best for the application we're using them for here. But now what we're doing is taking the hands up off the floor so that our entire body weight is being loaded on the stretch, but we're able to support a percentage of that now with the yoga blocks to help make the position a little more tolerable and really allow us to spend more time in the position, as well as spend a lot more time and energy and focus on the contraction methods within the position. All right, so we can start by having the yoga blocks underneath the adductors here, and as we progress, we're going to want to look to slide those yoga blocks under the calves, so that we're now going to be placing more load on the adductors and groin. All right, so with side split training, it's essentially just a numbers game. We're looking to add more and more and more of the load of our body weight onto the tissues, until eventually over time we're able to support the load of our full body weight on those tissues without any support at all. So the last thing I'm going to go over in this video is our contraction techniques. So there's two ways that we can contract in the position. There's going to be an antagonist contraction, which is contracting the muscles being stretched or lengthened, in this case the adductors. How we're going to do that is by thinking of pushing our feet into the floor and gripping the floor as if to bring the feet together. All right, that's going to create a nice solid contraction through the adductors. Now, if we're doing an agonist contraction, that's going to be contracting the muscles being shortened, which in this case are the hip abductors. So how we're going to create that contraction is by thinking about opening up the legs further, contracting our abductor muscles, and really visualizing as if we were to pull our feet off the floor. So there's an in-depth overview of the supported side split position. Perform the stretch as it's prescribed.